sexy, it hurts. And I'm too sexy for Milan, too sexy for Milan, New York and Japan.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to this week's edition of Doing It with Styles. I appreciate you coming back. I appreciate you supporting the show and the station and all the other shows that we have here at WWDBTV. Now, I know some of you out there read. You still read books, which is cool. It's a good thing to do. So for you, especially, I have an author today. And your name is, what the hell was your name again?
Lauren Tallman.
Lauren Tallman. Sorry. And you are an author.
Yes, yes.
That means that you write books.
A couple times over.
Okay.
Yep.
And you brought some here that we'll get into.
Yeah, please.
I like the cover on that one.
Oh,
yeah.
I make them.
Can I get her phone number? No. Sorry.
Don't listen.
Okay. So how did you become an author? What
pushed me
path
to
led you to that?
I always told stories. Even as a child, I remember sitting with friends and we had to run inside. You remember when you played on the street?
Sure.
And we all had to run in because it was raining. And I remember standing there and just speaking about the rain, how it was dripping off the leaves. And my friends went, whoa, you know. So I always had the ability to tell a story. That was the easy part. One day I started writing about a young girl. And I wrote these little short stories. And I would send it to a friend of mine and say, well, you know, what do you think about it? And one day she said, put them together, you have a book. And I thought she was right. I never thought of having a book. And this went on through time. I belonged to a writing group. This wasn't in America. This was in another country. And the other American, she would write articles. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do that. And I said, okay, I'm not doing our next exercise for writing. I said, I'm going to try to write an article. I sat down and I thought I was going to be funny and write how to have an affair and not get caught. And I thought it would be funny.
I need to read that. Yeah. No.
Many did. It saved their marriage, by the way. And all of a sudden, I couldn't keep on one point because I remembered, well, he did that and this girl did that and that, her husband. These images came back. And I remember leaning out and yelling to my husband, I think I have a book. Now, this little book is chock full of information.
Can I see
Please.
it? Yeah. Okay.
Nope.
And this is how to have an affair and not get caught. And now I'm assuming that this is both for men and women.
Yes.
Okay.
For instance, a woman shouldn't wear perfume because
Look what I opened up to.
Perfumes.
Chapter 5, perfume, makeup, and new clothes. Getting ready.
You can have an affair. Do not change your clothes. Don't change the way you look. It's like putting a sign on your forehead. And all these things came to mind. And this is a massive research in this little book. No perfume.
So this book is actually based on research. It's not just a made up story.
No, not
I mean,
at all.
It's not something that you wrote as kind of a joke or just something to be funny. This is a legitimate how to have an affair and not get caught.
Because its major point is not to tell, to keep a secret,
Yeah.
which is the hardest thing in the world. You have to keep a secret, not tell your brother, your sister, your hairdresser, your barber, no one. You tell one person, you've told the world. And if you have family, you protect that family. The fact that you wanted to have an affair for whatever reason, and believe me, people have come to me with reasons that I really didn't even expect. And it was to keep their lives safe.
Yeah.
While getting what they needed. If it was for a whiz bam, I didn't want to hear about it. But I still have a very good friend. She allows me to speak about this. And she was married for many years, had kids and everything. But her husband stopped sleeping with her. For whatever reason, I didn't get into. I asked her if they went to, doctors, and he just wasn't. And she said, "What do I do?" She said, "I'm too young for this." And I said, "Look, I'm giving you the book. Read it, follow it. If you have questions, ask me. But more than that, don't tell me. And whatever happens at the end, don't tell me." I saw her. I'd left the country. I'd come back for a visit. And I saw her and she said, "Thank you." It worked. She was happier. She everything was wonderful. Yeah. She had her family and she had her private life. She said, "What am I going to do? I'm too young for this. I'm not going to leave the family. I'm not going to break up the home." That's what it's all about. In fact, I'll go one further.
Okay.
I'll go one further on this. This is the conclusion. Now that you've read through this guide, imagine having an affair with your spouse. You were willing to risk everything to be with a stranger, but now think of having an affair packed with the same intrigue, passion, excitement, and commitment with the person you married. You probably had an affair with them in the first place.
Right.
Have an affair again. Go out, run away, buy lingerie, get toys, get creams, whatever. But the two of you run away.
Yeah.
I write columns for the Vegas Voice, and one of them said, "Run away, go with 2 cars, meet in the place and sign Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Have the affair again. Get the sparkle back. Get the passion back. You're together, and you wind up. What do we have for breakfast, and when do we go to sleep? Because it's just years, but once in a while, get that little kick in there.
Yeah.
Do something, run away. The two of you run away. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell the kids. Don't tell the grandkids. Don't tell anyone. You've run away. It's fast. And then for a week, the two of them sit there smiling and no one knows why. And it's because it's now legal to do that because they ran away.
And it's great advice. And I'm not, I don't advocate having an affair.
Exactly.
But, how many friends do you have?
Oh, God, I couldn't imagine.
Okay, so we have all of these friends, and each one of those friends brings something different into our lives.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the, this is just my personal opinion. Send your cards and letters to WWDBTV. I think that's a lot of the reason that people have affairs is they are not being fulfilled emotionally or,
Oh, there's so many. Yeah.
And it's not that you still love the person that you're, in a relationship with, or, you don't want to hurt them, but they can or cannot, for some reason, fulfill something that you need.
It could be a sexual need. And what's odd is,
but it doesn't always have to be sexual.
No, not at all. But sexually, they won't do something as a couple what they would do with a lover.
Yeah,
that's the odd thing. They're much more missionary with their spouse, and when they go out, believe me, people tell me stories that they shouldn't be telling me because it says in the book, "Don't tell," and they all come back and tell me. They're more open. The thing is, for some reason they can't do that with their spouse, but it's either sexual or just sometimes they can't put a finger on it, but there's something missing.
Yeah,
a bit of excitement, or they found their spouse becoming the couch potato, and they want to go out. There are so many reasons where all of a sudden the mind goes, if I wasn't here, where would I be?
Right.
And the thing is, if they do that, they've got to know how. They've got to know where to park. You cannot get a ticket. You can't. Don't dress in cotton because it wrinkles up. You can explain a shirt from your seatbelt, but not your pants. It's all these things. And again, just like I was saying, no perfume, no aftershave. A woman's sense of smell is so high. She'll immediately smell the perfume, another woman's perfume on him. A guy doesn't even know what he's smelling.
Well, that smells good.
And you have to remember these things.
Yeah.
Where to park, in the book also you have they're true stories. These are people that, honest to God, they came to me and gave me permission, and they gave me true stories of what happened. And one of them, got to tell you this one, he said he'd been a little longer with his lover, and he didn't stop to shower and everything, and he came home, and his wife said, "Oh, come on, you're late from work. We have to go. We're going out." So she was getting dressed, and the whole time he felt something was bothering him on his behind. And as he was speaking to her, he found the condom wrapper stuck to his behind, crunched it in his hand, and somehow got rid of it. I looked at him, I said, "Really?" I said, "You read the book, But things happen. One woman, she was stuck in a field. She decided to take a shortcut. It says, use maps, use your GPS, and then erase from your GPS. But how to get home? And she thought she would take a shortcut, went through a field, and the car got stuck. There was no way in the world she would get out. And suddenly, by the grace of God, a truck comes by with workers, and she's going, wait a minute. They pulled her out. She got home in time and just never said anything. She said her heart was beating.
Yeah, no kidding.
But you've got to watch what you're doing because you need it. but do it smart. Do it carefully. You have a family to watch over, and you can't put them in jeopardy.
So what prompted you to write that particular book?
As a joke, it started out to be like I say, a column that I realized I had too much for a column.
Gotcha.
I couldn't focus on one point. And once this came and that came, and I started looking it up, there is so much on the internet about how to have an affair. But they never really stressed the point, shut up. Don't tell anybody. Yeah. And that's hard. You're dying to say something, you're sparkling. I said how a guy sits there and he thinks, oh, ask me what's new. I said, he wants to brag to his friends. He can't do that.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, but they'll tell their wives and
that's right. Yeah,
it never ends. It never ends.
So what else have you got there that you've written? Which one of these? You got 4 books here. Which one is your favorite? Okay.
Harem of the
Dragon. Okay.
Harem of the Dragon. If you ask,
and this is a fictional.
Yes, this is fiction. This is
erotic novel.
Yes.
Okay, so
it's sensual. Let's say sensual.
I was just going to say, what is the difference between smut, erotic, romance? I mean, porn.
Completely different.
Okay.
Completely different.
So define neurotic. I know what neurotic is. Define erotic.
Erotica is a whisper. It's a whisper. I'm not going to say he grabbed her boob, but I'll say her skin was like silk under his fingers. I wrote a story where she comes up to him and she sees his lips and she thinks they must be perfect. And he takes the wine from her and drinks it. And she wishes she had made his lips wet like the wine had. And as he brings her closer, she thinks it must be perfect. And I want you to feel it. Erotica is showing you, not telling you. It's not he slammed her against the couch. No, She walked up to him and he put his finger. I always do this. He put his finger on her cheek and he put it down her neck. And as he went lower, she came closer so no one would see. And that's all I say. And people are staring at me and I go, I didn't say anything yet. Yeah. And yet, look, it's building a person's imagination where they want to be there.
I was just going to say, what you're doing is stimulating their imagination rather than painting them a picture.
And you'd be surprised.
You're letting them paint their own picture. Yeah.
That's just it. When he laid her across the couch. No, he held her. She felt his hands across her back. That it already shows you his hands are larger, she's smaller. It's if you want to put it into a control thing that she's the little one. Or that she wants to be enveloped by him. Right. It's what you saw. I don't say his hands were big. I say his hand grasped the entire glass, wrapped around the glass. You get pictures of this. Or when he looks when he saw her above the others' heads, now you know how much taller he is.
Right.
It's to give you the image of these people, and you become the image. The guy feels like he's the protagonist. The woman, she feels like she's the protagonist. She sees herself in flowing dresses, if that's what I'm talking about. Then when she turned, the dress followed her. All these things that I give you the picture. Do what you want with it. But it's giving you the picture. But this one, harem, this was very odd. I sat down one day out of the clear blue. I've never studied about China. I worked with China for many years, but I never studied China. And I suddenly saw out of the blue, I'm starting to type, and I see this young boy that he's taller and skinnier than his brothers and sisters. And he only has like these ragged shorts on, and he's jumping on what is his bed, but it's made of fabric to show you how poor they are. That his mother was, over the steaming pot, the one pot. And then his father coming in. And I imagined this and wrote it. I wrote the first 2 chapters without picking up my fingers. And I see the father coming in and smiling, and the kids had never seen him smile before with his few teeth, right? And he says to this one, he calls him boy, skinny one, come here. And he actually sells his son to the palace, to the emperor. This is Ming Dynasty, 1400.
Which was commonplace at that time, in that period of history. Yeah.
Oh, this is massive research, massive research. The people that are in it, their true names, he's taken in under the wing of physician Lee. He was the main physician at the palace, and the day he comes to the palace, he's made a eunuch, and his entire life changed in one day. But physician Lee takes him, like I say, under his wing, and the boy's name is Long. Long means dragon. That's why it's harem of the dragon. Now he's made head of the harem. What he has to do is he has to teach these girls what to do with the emperor, how to please him.
Gotcha.
Because if they didn't, they were killed.
Yeah.
It's a very dark period, and I had to get out of the darkness and make it. What can I say? Take it. I could tell just so much. Because there were different ways that they could be killed. There were different tortures that men would go through if they even dared look at someone from the concubine, which no one could see. The Forbidden City was built 9,999 buildings, 9,999 rooms, because 10,000 would be over the top.
Yeah.
And this is how it was. The emperor at that time, he liked girls 13 to 16. That was it. He had his empress. That was something else. That was a political thing. He had these girls. The minute they turned 16, they were in palaces all over the country. But he had from 13 to 16. Now, what's the kicker? Every night he had 9 of these girls in bed with him. Now, Long has to teach them how to please the emperor. He has to teach them how to show their pleasure. And he said, moan. Show that it puts him on a higher level. Look what he did for you.
Sure.
But he would not orgasm. He wouldn't. He would stop himself because this put him on a higher level, and he was a god.
Right.
What happens is when they knew, the physicians were amazing at that time. When they knew the empress was ovulating, that's when the emperor came to her, and that's how they had the royal heir. Sometimes he lost it. And if the girl did get pregnant, she was put on a higher level in the concubine, but not that high.
Right.
It was an entire pyramid of how this whole, the society worked. And Long has to keep them going. But what about him? What about this young boy? As he's growing up, he's learning about women. He's touching their breasts. He's testing things. But he has no feeling. He had been made a eunuch, no sexual feeling whatsoever. But he learned how to teach them what to do, how to act, where to sit, how to lie, all these things. Each chapter has something happening to Long, the part where he's teaching them, and then it closes the chapter. Now, what happens when he's still a young guy, he's still learning, and he's going through the palace? And you know how they had those urns at that time? They were white, with the blue painting on them. Some were small, some were taller than men. And when he walks through the palace, he sees a shadow from behind one of the urns. And when he looks, he sees a little girl, 5 years old. Now, immediately, children were never allowed in that area. Never. They had their own area with their mothers in some part. So in other words, she's street smart if she kept herself alive. And he said, what are you doing here? And she said, my beautiful sister was brought. They allowed me to come with her. But the empress saw she was so beautiful, they sent her away, but they didn't send me away. And I'm on my own. And the women in the concubine, they hurt me. And when he looks down and he sees her in the sunlight, he realized she's beautiful. And the women were afraid she was going to grow up to be such a beauty.
Competition.
And he said, you stay with me. I'll take care of you. And this little girl bows to him and says, I will never leave you. But what happens through the years when she does grow up and she has someone who loves her and who she loves, does he lose her? His biggest fear, this was the daughter he never had.
Yeah.
He brought her up. There are things that happened where she found a baby. That's also a story. And she says, let me keep the child just like you kept me. And will he lose his daughter and grandson? This is how he felt toward them. If you want to know what happened, buy the book.
Read the book, yeah.
And what happens when somebody, at that time, the biggest sailor, if you want to call it that, was from China. China was so far ahead of the whole world. They had heating under the floors in the palace.
Yep.
They had book production before Europe. And here's this biggest sailor in the world comes, and Long realizes the sailor wants to take his place. Doesn't want to fly around so much anymore. So what do? You go over and go, oh, he wants my job. You can't do that. He finds a way to make him trip up. If you want to know how, buy the book. And I was really proud of that one. I was proud of that one to think of how to do that. What happens when you have, and these women, what happens when you have women coming in from all over the world? They were given as gifts to the emperor. The commerce, what was coming out of China was phenomenal. There was commerce with so many countries. And even the Chinese women, to come there was the highest thing that you could do. If the Chinese girl didn't make it, for whatever, she didn't please him, she backed away, whatever, not only was she destroyed, but her family for generations. Look at what was on her shoulders, but she did it willingly, more than likely willingly, because it put her on this high level, and figuring she never saw her family again, though.
Yeah.
Once she got into the palace, that was the end of the story. So what happens when somebody sends this beautiful woman from another country as a gift to the emperor, and she says, I'll take over from the empress? And Long is sitting there going, no, you're not. Right? And what happens there? You're going to have to read the book. And how to get out of all these situations, the ins and outs of the situations. And at the end of the book, he has to confront his father, which he hadn't done in years. And what I love about the book is that I couldn't get an ending. I needed that last paragraph that hits you. And I waited and I thought, it'll come. And one day I just sat down, and this is after he confronted his father and realized his father could never hurt him again. He was so above everyone. We drove, my hands were icy and damp, my voice hoarse when I called to the driver, continue to Old Dragon's Head where the Great Wall meets the sea. We drove for hours until the carriage stopped. I jumped out and walked alone until I reached the edge of the mighty wall. I breathed in the brisk air. My nostrils flared and my chest burned as fire, waiting to burst forth. The waves crashed, but dared not splash onto me. The wind swirled, but did not have the courage to dry my eyes. I raised my arms, clenched my fists, and shouted to the ebb and flow of the water, I am Long, chief eunuch of the emperor's harem. Hear me, waters, hear me, wind. Scream my name to the sky and say, I am the dragon.
Very nice.
Very nice. And if you buy the book, you get honey. You'll
honey from China?
I wish. The honey runs very much through the book, of many parts of the book. And I said, you know what? Someone gets the book.
Yeah, that's cool.
They get honey.
That's cool. So where can people find your books?
Lauren Tallman. If you look, that's my brand.
Right.
Lauren Tallman. You'll get to my site. You'll get to wherever it's being sold.
So if we just Google your
Lauren
name,
Tallman,
it'll give us your website.
Oh, yeah, and straight on the website, you can get all the books. Someone said I have my own writing group, the Erotic Writers Group of Las Vegas, because I belong to the Henderson Writers Group. I'm vice president there, and you can write about aliens sucking out the brains of somebody. You can write about the mafia, burying somebody vertically instead of horizontally. But I couldn't read erotica.
Yeah,
because some people, they get a little. And I said, what do I do? And someone said, start your own group. 11 years ago. March was 11 years and still going strong.
Wow.
And many of them are published. Many have published. So what happened, many of them were writers. And I said, if you're a writer, it's one thing. But the moment you get published anywhere, you're an author. So we made the first book, which I sold out, so it's not here. The first book came out. The second book we made last year for the 10th anniversary. So it's Anthology X for Anthology 10. And here, they're great writers. They're great writers. And then someone said to me, why don't you put your own anthology of your own work? And I said, you know what, I will. But what do you call it? You call it Come Again?
I like that. I was looking at that.
Come Again, a collection of sensual tales. And I love these. They're parts of the story with Long, another book. And just, Rodin. Oh, I love this. This is where she wishes she had made his lips wet rather than the wine. I love that story. And it's just fun. It's just fun. And I really did this rather later in life when you think about it. I did write for myself through the
Right.
years, and I was busy, but I still have found these moments. You know, you sit down, you knock off a little story because I'm very much a short story writer, so I can give you the entire outline, and you've got your book, you've got your whole story. And again, I didn't live in America for 33 years, and I was in writing groups there from with people from all over the world, and their writing sometimes it was amazing to me. And I got so much more knowing all these different people. And like I said, I worked with China, I worked with every continent, I worked in international companies because I had such nerve. I knew English, I knew my work, and I was very nervy. And I, when I went to a headhunter, usually would say, "Are you happy?" And I would say, "How much?" It was that simple. It was the name or the money that
Yeah.
made it. And one day I got a phone call. I have to say this. One day I get a phone call and she said, "Listen, there are 3 women in the whole country. You're one of them. But you have to promise me that you can't tell anybody when I tell you who this is." This was a Trump. Okay. This was on the level of Trump, more even, way more. And I said, "Okay, you know." And she said, "Okay, tomorrow you come in at this and this time into this building and I'll put you first." I was so arrogant. I said, "Put me second." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because they'll see the first and they'll say, 'Oh, she's very good.' But then they'll meet me. And when they see the third, they'll go, 'No, she's not up to learn.'"
No.
And the next day, got the job. Look at the arrogant, how arrogant I was. But I worked there for years. That's an eye opener when you see people who should be hanged for what they did and they get away with it because of the money. Did that for several years. And still, in that time, I was writing. Then I came to the States almost 20 years ago. I can't believe it was that long. And I got into the Henderson Writers Group. And I would come, it was every week, and there was always somebody coming up in front, reading their piece, and then we would critique it. And I sat all the way in the back, and I thought, I'll never write like this. You know, you sit there and you're just like in awe. And they have a yearly anthology, and I thought, I wonder if I can put in my story. So I raised my hand because usually you bring copies and this whole thing. I said, "I have a story. Can I read it?" You know, and they said, "Yeah." I came up front. The secretary was sitting next to me, and I'm standing. And I read the story, and I look up, crickets, and I thought, "Oh, it's crap," and I don't want to say anything, you know. And I'm just standing there. Am I, you know, when your hands get cold?
Yeah.
And I looked down to her, and she said, "They have nothing to say because it was perfect." After that, I sat up front. I sat up front. I had a voice. And I entered every anthology that I entered. It was accepted, which is that's a challenge because it's not read here. It's read by people in other states
Right.
who don't know me, and then they grade it. Thank you very much. At this time in my life, I need a grading, and I know I shouldn't say this. They told me not to say it, but I actually got 100. Another time 96, and I went, 96, really? You know, he didn't like the way the dress flowed or something. And each time I was putting, and this of course is not erotic, but my forte is erotica and sensuality. And you said the difference. Porn, I can't do porn. Forget it. I can't say it. If I can't say it, how am I going to write it?
Right.
Because I read portions. I can't, the simplest words I get. A nice Jewish girl from Brooklyn doesn't do this, right? And I had to write it and I realized I let you feel it. I remember many, many years ago, I sat and out of the blue, I thought, I wonder if I can write a story using all the senses. So after she meets him, and when she walks in and she smells the coffee, and she picked up the cookie and then looked at the oil on her fingers and rubbed them. You know, all these things, which when she left him and sat in the car and the window was open, the winds came and a dry leaf rolled next to I hit all the sentences and I thought, I can do it.
That's awesome.
And that's what it is. Because porn, you read that, you go make a cup of coffee, you're going to forget I spoke to you.
Yeah.
Let's face it, you're not going to remember. But you'll remember that her skin is silk under his fingers. That you'll remember for a long time. Sensual, erotic, they run together. The problem is I can't say erotic that quickly. People, when they hear erotic, they right away think porn. They go, I don't read that stuff. And I said,
Yeah.
I don't either. And then I have to explain to them it's something else. So I had to change it a sensual tale because that was okay. They accepted that. I had to take off the word erotic. But basically, it's the same because it's the feeling that it gives you. Erotic, we get edgy.
Right.
We get edgy. But there are some things that we know.
Well, and that's we talked about this earlier. That's one of the differences between a romance novel and an erotic novel.
Yeah.
Is the erotic novel or sensual novel is a little bit more edgy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cross the line.
I have to admit, when I came to America for a visit, and I see my mother has all these Harlequin, those books and everything. And I said, Ma, I said, you're reading these? She goes, yeah. She goes, they're really good. It was in the evening. I'm thumbing through it. I'm starting to read. Do you know how sexy that book is? I go, this? I thought, some of it was sexier than some of the things that I write. And I thought to myself, you don't know. But now I know. Now I understood why all these women were buying these books. They didn't give a damn about the story. They got to that part.
Yeah.
Good part. It always was.
You could see the dog-eared pages.
I'm sure you did. The little fingerprints. But that's what the group does. We help each other. We write. It's in my home. I bake. Everybody knows. Go to the kitchen, make a cup of coffee, get some cake. We sit down. My living room is filled. On the couch and the chairs, we lengthen the table. And it's usually 4 to 5 people who read, and we all critique. We don't cut this down. Most places, you'll go from 6:30 to 8:30, and everybody goes home. Not here. They come in before 6:30 to make the coffee, get the cake. We sit and talk, and they bring copies for everyone. We can write on it. We can write feelings, whatever we want on it. And then every person speaks. In other groups, it's like a few people. Okay, we have time.
Yeah.
Not here.
Right.
Everyone there. I had 15 people sitting at the table. Every one of them get critiqued because everyone sees it differently.
Of course. Yeah. And that's 3 people can read that book and walk away with 3 different
absolutely
perceptions of what that story was.
Someone wrote, and okay, but everyone's critiquing. I'm usually the last. I let everybody go through it. And there was one sentence where I said, it didn't sit with me. And everybody said, oh, we got it. And I said, but I didn't. That means someone else also won't.
That's right.
I said, and it's for you to take into consideration. You don't follow what everybody says, but you listen to it. You suddenly realize, whoa, they didn't understand that. I should change the sentence. Put this before, and made it stronger. And it's making the word stronger. We teach each other. Don't say he had been going. No, he went. He went. Make it strong. Make it sharp. Even when you're writing something sensual, it's still sharp. It's getting you there. She walked to him and stared in his eyes. Not she was walking. No. He touched her and felt her skin. It's always direct. It's always sharp. And yet it's emotional.
Right.
It always brings out all the emotions. You get a little hyped up with it. You do, because that's the whole point of it. Unless I was reading about aliens sucking out somebody's brain. I never got into that. I always had a problem with that. And again, it's a problem sometimes trying to sell these because people walk up with their mother, their brother, their sister, their husbands and wives. I had someone walk up.
And they don't want to be seen buying it.
Yes. I had this guy walk up, a rather young guy. And I said, hello, hi, I'm Lauren Tallman. And he goes, whoa. And suddenly he went, his wife was coming, and I just stood there. I didn't say anything. It was so funny. And then they buy it online.
Yeah.
LaurenTallman.com. You'll find my books. And it's so funny, the reactions of people. But I love when people go, whoa, pay me the money and walk away. Great feeling, by the way. But people buy them. They want to read it. And again, one thing about erotica, you've got to have a story. If it's porn, he slugs her, he zets her and goodbye. Harem of the Dragon, it's a story. If you took out the erotic sections, you have a book.
Still have it. And that's what I was talking about. 3 different people could watch that. One of them would read it. This is an amazing book about Chinese history.
Yep. And this is what's happening.
And this is another one is, this is an amazing story of one young man's growth and, And then the other one was, well, this was hot.
Which I get a
Yeah, I
lot of.
know, I know.
I was speaking to a publisher a few days ago, and when I was speaking to her, she said, "You really did your research?" And I said, "Yes." What they wore, what they ate, did they really eat duck? And the hierarchy with the servants and the slaves never looked at you. They would never dare look up at somebody. And when Long passes, they're bowed down and they look down. They don't see him. And it gave him even a greater feeling. He was suddenly from that poor little boy going higher and higher till he reached one of the highest levels in the palace, to the level of ministers and ambassadors. What he said went. By the way, I have to tell you this little girl who's called Little Sister because she'd never been given a name, being that small. And Little Sister starts growing up, and she gets to an age where the emperor would want her. And Long is just he's just
ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and he doesn't know what to do. He's not allowed to lie. They were books. There were books on books through the years of every single girl that came in. There were thousands. Figure 9 a night, 365 days. There was thousands of women, and all of these were ledgers. And it said who she was, where she came from, da 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 da. The last section, the last column, if something was wrong and why she wasn't given to the emperor. And I'm giving this away, but he stands there and he had to fill out her name. He had to fill out Little Sister, what her age was, and all this. And his heart was breaking because he knew he would never see her. She would be gone.
Yeah.
And when he came back to the ledger, he sees that somebody had written on the last column, and that was the physician, the only one who could write something. And he wrote, upon examining the girl, I found her spine to be crooked and not good enough to be with the emperor. He saved the girl. And Long comes to the physician's room, and the physician is working on his medicines, which they did. And he doesn't turn around, and he says, we have nothing to say. And Long, looking at him, bows to him in thanks for saving the child. You know, you've got to tell a story.
Yeah.
You've got to tell a story. And I love this book. And yes, I'm doing a sequel. The minute it came out,
You're doing a sequel?
Yes.
When is it coming out? When is it going to be done? How soon? How far are you? How many chapters?
Shoot me. What happened was it starts out chapter 1, the boy. And I thought to myself, okay, chapter 1, the man. Now it's years later. What happens with these people? And you have to think, it's not only thinking of the story, I have to read the history.
Yeah.
What does happen 5 years later? They're actually closer to war with the Mongolians, go figure, and the things that happen. But when this came out, people read it, and I was flabbergasted. It's great. I loved it, and da-da-da-da. When's the next book? And I would say, what book? And they go, you're not carrying on with his life?
Yeah.
And people have said it for a while. And all of a sudden, I thought, yeah, why not? You have to wait for it to come to you.
Yeah.
You suddenly stick.
And no, you're absolutely right. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, is that when you're writing, is it, okay, I got this flash, I got to sit down and I got to put it down right now? Or is it, okay, time to write another chapter? Is it something that just flows through you? If I write, there are many people that do that. They write their outline, right? Every chapter. If I've done that, I've written the book. Yeah. I sit there and I like what happened with Long. I sat down and suddenly started writing because I could see him. I could see this tall, lanky boy. Plus, by the way, why is he lanky and taller more than his sisters and brothers? Half-breed. There's something in here. And you'll find that out in the second. You'll find that out in the sequel. In the second book. Okay. Yeah. That's well, because when you were describing him in the beginning, and I thought to myself, okay, he's not. He there has to be some other. Yep. There was a reason to put him in that light. What can I say? I'm doing the sequel. I'm started it now. But again, like I say, I can't put out an outline because then I finish the book. Yeah. Even when Little Sister finds that baby, that wasn't I never even thought of that. I'd gone through a store and I love paintings. And I see this
Oh, giant painting. And you see a Chinese baby on a red mat, and he was wearing red. He's royal. He's royal. And I looked and looked. I took a picture, came home, and I wrote how she found this baby. And this little boy grows up, he becomes one of the main characters.
And so she found him at Albertsons, or
something like that, and didn't have to pay, went under the table, And it's just seeing the people, seeing, it's like Long's servant, loyal servant. Long wanted to speak to little sister, and he says to his loyal servant who would have died for him, right? He said, watch the baby. And you see the servant go like that. And it looked like he was facing a tiger.
Yeah.
He'd never touched a child before. It's seeing them. It's seeing their reactions to things, how they reacted, what they did that they didn't think they would do. Little sister, through the book, twice saves his life without him knowing this before.
Right.
But she's so loyal to him. This is the love between these people. His servant would never leave him. The little sister would never leave him. There are all these things, but what happens in the way when life gets in the way?
Yep.
And what happens, and how does he swing through it? I love it.
Well, and that's I always enjoy an author that has taken day-to-day experiences that we've all had and incorporates that into their story. Whether it's historical or, from another time, another, whatever, because we all have those common experiences in our lives.
It's through the ages. It's common. He found her, he lost her, he found her again.
Yeah.
Let's face it. And people say to me, well, I want to write something, but everybody's written that. I said, everybody's written a Romeo and Juliet too. Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun, but it's how you say it. Show it to me. And I say, don't tell me, show me. Right. The leaves waved over her, but her neck was wet. In other words, what is she going through? What's happening? Is she waiting for him? And it doesn't matter that there's a wind. She's still that excited. Show me what they feel. Show me that her toes clenched up. Anything, but show it to me. Make me that person. I'm making you that person. You can see her. You can see her being touched. You can feel her being touched. This is what I give you, and in erotica, no better way.
I used to have at least 2 or 3 or 4 books going at the same time, different books when I was reading, not writing. Oh. Lately I haven't read so much because I've been busy, but there are those authors that I love that have created an entire world that you just naturally fall into.
And you remember it.
And even as foreign as they might be, they're still familiar.
If it's written well, you're going to remember. You're going to be writing and you're going to remember what you read in that chapter. Yeah. And you're going to feel it. Please don't feel it while you're driving, okay? It can get a little bit hairy at that point. But you remember these erotic moments. But it's not the erotica, it's the feeling. Yeah. And you remember the words. And this is what it's all about. It is to hype you up. It is to make you excited. That's what this is all about. Better than sucking out someone's brain with it from an alien. This is far better as far as I'm concerned. But you remember the words. Yeah. You remember you remember the feeling, and you always do.
It invokes an emotional response from you.
And what's better than thinking about love, sex all day long? Yeah. Oh, when I was writing, it's constant. I watch TV and I'm thinking I could write that, and I'm thinking, oh, you know what, I should say that. And my daughter had come over, and as she's walking out, I said, I'm so tired, and I'm holding the door handle. I said, thinking about sex all day long is so tiring, and she did this. And she walked away. I closed the door, and I thought, okay, wrong time, wrong place. But it's true that I think about sex all day long, but I think of it in an erotic sense. But all day long, whatever you say, whatever you do, whatever somebody's wearing, it doesn't matter. Whatever I'm watching on TV, a movie, I find the eroticism in it. A lot of times you'd be surprised how underlying eroticism is in movies. Oh. In movies, the way they hold their hands. Do you know that if a woman holds her hands like this, it's totally erotic? When you see a woman politician and she speaks like this, and she's speaking to that's erotic. But people don't realize it. And she gets across far more than the woman who does that. Right. It's this. Yeah. And I'm thinking now, I wonder if men do that. I have to take a look to see which men do this. Very odd, but there are certain things that you don't realize. From Here to Eternity.
Oh God, yeah.
Lancaster and
Yeah.
the water.
Yep.
Well, the water, that's all sex.
Yeah.
Freud saying if you dream about sex, if you dream about water, you dream about sex. And that's why the waves come in. That's why when you see they kissed, in the 1950s, you could never see more than that. Even the early 60s. So they kissed, and all of a sudden you saw the waves of the ocean. Yeah, because they're having sex. It was telling you, it was showing you without telling you.
It was a brilliant movie.
Oh God,
everyone in it deserved an Oscar.
I only liked his legs in that water. Oh God, he was a trapeze artist.
Yeah.
Oh, and when there was the movie Trapeze,
Yep.
he went on.
He did his own.
They couldn't insure him.
Yeah.
They couldn't insure him. He said no problem because he had done this as a profession.
Yeah.
And he goes flying, and I'm sitting like this thinking, oh God, look at those legs. His legs were gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful legs.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting a little bit short on time.
Okie doke.
What would you like the viewers to know about Lauren?
Lauren Tallman. LaurenTallman.com. Lauren.Tallman@gmail.com. If you want to write, if you want to ask questions, get in touch with me. It's wonderful. I wait to hear from you and write. If you want, everybody has a book in them. They say that everybody has a book. Do it. Write your book and send it to me. Let me see what you got.
That's good.
Thank you.
Everybody, I thank you a lot for coming in every week and watching my show and all the other great shows here at WWDB TV. And don't forget, this Saturday, 10 a.m. down at Barnes & Noble over on Rainbow, I will be there doing a book signing.
You wrote a book?
No, I go in there and I set up a table. And if you buy a book, any book in the place, I'll sign it for you.
I walked right into that. I walked right into it.
So, like I said, if you're going to do it with styles.
Oh.
Nice work, John.